Alright, so welcome to the Injog Shuffle. The Injog Shuffle is just a simple but effective way of retaining a small amount of cards, which we call a stock, either on top of the deck or on the bottom of the deck. So this is a partial false overhand shuffle, so it will only retain a small amount of cards rather than the entire order of the deck. So this move, alongside the Milk Shuffle and the Lift Shuffle, I would consider one of the cornerstone false or devious overhand shuffle techniques in Magic, because genuinely you do see this move quite a bit. Me personally, I do prefer the Lift Shuffle or the Milk Shuffle more than this move, but this move has its own merits. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the history regarding the Injog Shuffle. So believe it or not, this technique, or at least an earlier version of this technique, has been recorded in probably one of the first, or considered the first, book on sleight of hand or just magic in general, and that is The Discovery of Witchcraft by Reginald Scott back in 1584. It is called, I'm going to read it off because it's actually a huge mouthful of a move, so I'll name out the move. So it is quote, of cards with good cautions how to avoid cosenage therein, special rules to convey and handle cards, and the manner and order how to accomplish all difficult and strange things wrought with cards. So that is the full name of the section that describes the Injog Shuffle in The Discovery of Witchcraft. It's a long title, I know. But yeah. Now, because we know that The Discovery of Witchcraft was written to actually just dispel the existence of actual witchcraft being used in sleight of hand, we know that the Injog Shuffle has probably existed way before the publication of this move. So we can reason that it existed before 1584. And since then, there has been numerous other entries for the Injog Shuffle, including, well, the Expert at the Card Table back in 1902 by S.W. Erdnase. That was described in False Shuffles, and yeah, so far it's been basically published anywhere. I mean, even in Card College Volume 1, I believe there's some variations of it in G. Newgard and Frederick Browey's books as well. So it's just been published all over the place, and you can really see that its influence has really been spread all around, and that's why I call it one of the cornerstones of partial false overhand shuffles. So without further ado, let's get into the basic mechanics behind the Injog Shuffle. So obviously you have to learn how to do an overhand shuffle. If you don't already know, then I have an entire video dedicated on just teaching you guys how to shuffle cards. But one tiny thing regarding the overhand shuffle grip for the Injog Shuffle is that this is going to be slightly different. So generally, usually when I do an overhand shuffle, my pinky is actually just resting alongside the face of this deck over here. But this time, we're going to do something different. My left pinky isn't going to be here. It's actually going to be closer to the long edge of the deck over here. So it's a lot closer to a straddle grip instead. All right. So do keep this in mind, because the pad of your pinky is going to be important for the functioning of this move. Okay. So we're going to start off with the cards that you want to control on top of the deck. In this case, we're just going to describe. We're going to use the aces as our key card, okay, as our cards for reference, okay. So the very first thing that we should do is I'm just going to leave them face up, okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're just going to execute our overhand shuffle as per usual. We're going to do one chop, right? And on the next card, what we're going to do is kind of different. So we're just going to run off one card the next time, right? So instead of running off an entire packet, we're just going to take our thumb and we're just going to drag one card off. But rather than just dragging one card off, we're also going to kick it backwards. So as you're dragging it backwards, our left thumb is also going to just slightly move backwards. And as this card moves backwards, it's also going to contact the pad of your left pinky over here, right? And your pinky doesn't even have to apply any sort of pressure. It just stays there. It just applies enough friction to this card so that it just anchors in place. So the main reason why you don't want to apply any pressure is that if you apply any pressure, this creates a sort of gap. And with this gap, well, if you shuffle off the rest of the packet, you'll get like it'll start like sliding off or whatever, and it's really not something that you want. So when you just have this one card, it's just held by friction and friction only, and it's just gently laying there, okay? So now you have one card injogged, and this card is injogged on top of your top stock, okay? Now, it's going to be relatively simple because you're just going to shuffle off the rest of the cards on top of this injog card, okay? So it's just going to be simple. It's just going to be a regular overhand shuffle. And if you want to hide the injog a bit better, you can actually just have this have the rest of the deck be shuffled on sort of a bit more messily, or have the top card also sort of kick backwards like so, okay? So now the state of the deck is kind of messy, like so, but because of the pinky, you still have your injog card anchored into place because of, again, friction, okay? So our right hand comes over. It's gonna come over, and your right thumb is going to contact this injog card over here, okay? It's gonna contact it, and it's going to sort of just apply pressure forward, so it causes this to bend, right? So now this creates a gap in between of both packets, and now your thumb also kicks this card back into the deck. So this creates a thumb break in between of both packets, separating the top stock from the rest of the deck, all right? And now you have a thumb break like so, okay? Now the rest of the move will be relatively easy. But first I want to touch on how you can actually get this top stock back on top. So there's actually two methods that you can do. So for Erdnäs's blind shuffles 1 to retain top stock, once you have the thumb break, what he does for this particular method is that his left hand comes over, he just cuts directly at the thumb break and just tosses everything back on top. All right, so that's what Erdnäs does for this particular method, and that's how he gets the top stock back on top of the deck, okay? Now for most handlings of the Injog Shuffle, right, it's just going to be a very basic thing. So you have your thumb break once more. Next, you're just going to execute a second overhand shuffle, right? So you're just going to start off with your overhand shuffle, and as you approach your thumb break, you're just going to apply less pressure, and you're going to start peeling off cards one by one, all right? You're going to start peeling cards one by one until you hit your thumb break, and that's when you know that you can toss everything back on top, and then you've controlled everything back on top of the deck, okay? So this sequence is a 2 overhand shuffle sequence, okay? So that's 1, you get your thumb break, and that's 2, okay? Whereas the Erdnäs one is actually 1 overhand shuffle, and then basically just, oh crap, I missed that, and then 1 cut, okay? So that is the 2 methods of getting the top stock back on top of the deck using the Injog Shuffle. Now let's go over the Injog Shuffle but used to retain the bottom stock. So this is going to largely retain the same properties as the top stock retention, right? But we're going to start with the cards on the bottom of the deck, all right? So we're going to start doing an overhand shuffle as per usual. So you're going to start off with 1 chop, and then 2, and then so on. And once you hit a small stock of cards, so you're approaching the bottom few cards, what you're going to do now is you're just going to peel off 1 card, the same as you did before with the top stock control, right? You're going to in-jog it, and again, your pinky is just there to apply any sort of like friction to the card, so then it just doesn't move, right? So it's just anchoring the card in place with friction, okay? The same as the top stock retention. Next, you're just going to toss everything on top of the in-jog, right? You're going to toss everything on top of the in-jog. Just make sure that it doesn't smear over the in-jog, because if it smears over, then you won't be able to sort of recover it, all right? So you want to make sure that you toss it above of the in-jog, like so, okay? Obviously, I'm exaggerating the in-jog for teaching purposes, but if it does get that big, the mess on top of the deck will hide the in-jog a bit, okay? So now that you have everything, so now that you have your first overhand shuffle done, you can't really do the Erdnase method of just cutting the deck, because there's too small of a stock here. So if you do go the Erdnase route of cutting this deck, it's gonna look very weird because it's such a small portion of cards, whereas normally you would cut like about half of the deck. So you can't really do that. But what you can do instead is another overhand shuffle. So what you can do now is, rather than pressing to the right of the in-jog and then pressing it back into the deck, what you can do instead is you're going to actually wrap your thumb around of this in-jog card, causing it to bend against of the bottom stock, all right? And this causes a gap once more, right? And now you're just gonna kick this card back into the deck, forming a thumb break, okay? And now what you're going to do is relatively simple. Your left thumb reaches over. It basically just takes everything above of the thumb break, which means that it's the bottom stock. And then you just execute a overhand shuffle as per usual. And this retains the bottom stock on the bottom of the deck, okay? So that is the Injog Shuffle as a bottom stock control or retention, all right? So this is just a small idea based on stacking the deck using an overhand shuffle. This is by far not the best method for stacking the deck using an overhand shuffle, but I just thought it would be kind of sort of interesting to see different uses for this move, okay? So you're just going to execute your Injog Shuffle as per usual, right? So you're just going to start your first chop, so it's on top of the deck. The card that you want to stack is on top of the deck, right? You execute your one chop, but depending on where you want this card to end up, you're gonna start running off single cards, okay? So if I want this card to end up fifth from the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run off 4 cards. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I execute my my Injog, okay? So I'm basically stacking the cards on top of this selection first, and then I execute my Injog Shuffle. So that way, the stack is hidden within the rhythm of the Injog Shuffle, and then I could just execute my Injog Shuffle as per usual. And now the selection should be at the 5th position from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So yeah, basically the idea behind this is just running off single cards until you hit the number that you want your card to end up at. So if I want like, I don't know, 7, right? So I just do one chop and I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Injog, and then I shuffle off the rest of the cards. Execute my Injog Shuffle. might have peeled off an extra card. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, that was right. 5, 6, 7. All right. So that's just a very small idea regarding the regarding how to stack one card. For the bottom one, it's basically just the same. All right. So you're going to execute your overhand shuffle as per usual. Next, you're going to injog the card, and then, for example, you want this card to be fourth from the bottom. You're just gonna injog one card, and then you're gonna count 3 cards. 1, 2, 3, and then you toss everything back on top of the deck, and then you execute your injog shuffle as per usual. And now your ace of spades should be fourth from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, what is this used for? Well, good question, because there are definitely better running up or stacking techniques, just like even in the overhand shuffle realm, because there's the milk shuffle, which I won't get into, and there's also riffle stacking, which I think is so much more efficient, rather, right? Because if you just do this, then you'll have like it's already fifth from the top, right? So just doing that is already like so much more efficient than like doing one chop and then counting the cards individually and then doing another overhand shuffle. Like, this is a lot of work, right? But again, I just wanted to tinker around with certain moves, right? So there are 2 small ideas in particular that you can use for this particular idea. One is that you can do a card at any number with a small number. So if I want to do a card at any number with a, I don't know, name, for example, if I take my name as example, right? I have 6 letters in my name. So here I just do one chop and I run up 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, injog, and then I do an overhand shuffle as per usual, right? I execute my second overhand shuffle. And now I can just tell the spectator now I can just give the spectator the deck and just ask them to spell out their name. So in this case, it is C-U-R-T-I-S, and their selection will end up at the last letter of their name. Okay, so that's just a small idea regarding the displacement version of this move. The other thing they can use is that you can just have additional cards for a cover. So for example, if you execute like just one or 2 cards, right, and then you execute, whoop, sorry, I screwed that up. So if you just execute this move with an additional 2 cards, for example, right, and then you execute this one, you can then show, oh yeah, your card isn't on top of the deck, right, or neither is it on the bottom, so it has to be somewhere in the center of the deck. But in doing so, you control this card to the top of the deck. It's the same thing with the bottom version, right? Because for the bottom version, this card is in full view, well, in full view during the entire time. So you might want to add like a couple of cover cards. So if I want to add 2 cover cards, just in case for the bottom version, you execute your shuffle, injog, 1, 2, toss everything on top, and then you execute your second injog shuffle. Now you can display the bottom, the face of this deck with no issue. You can also display the top of the deck with no issue as well, okay? And if you just want to get rid of these cards, you can just do a double overcut or so, right? And that displaces this card back to the bottom, okay? So these are just 2 small ideas that you can do for the stacking version of the Injog Shuffle. Now, if you're curious about the Injog Shuffle and you want to learn more about the Injog Shuffle, there's a couple of sources here and there, but they're mostly just going to tell you the same thing. But I wouldn't discourage you reading up on those because, I mean, maybe my description isn't clear enough, or maybe, I don't know, anything else happens, right? So Card College Volume 1 by Roberto Giobbi is a phenomenal place to learn this move. There's also The Expert at the Card Table by S.W. Ertnes, Marlowe, The Final Cut by Ed Marlowe, the Penguin Live Lecture by Fast Jack Farrell. There he teaches you how to actually run up the deck using the Milk Shuffle. So that's the thing that I mentioned beforehand in the displacement section. So yeah, that's why I'm not teaching that. But Again, you can just buy the Penguin Live Lecture by Fast Jack Farrow, and you can learn that there. There's also Mnemonica by Juan Tamariz, and yeah, I mean, again, anything by Juan is just phenomenal, so you should probably go and get that book. But besides those sources, I don't know why I butchered that word, but yeah. But besides those sources, there are still a huge amount of other sources, which I highly recommend you to look and see for yourself. Because even just the basic G. Newgard and Frederick Browd books, it's been described there time and time again. So I highly recommend that you reread up on those sources and just brush up on your knowledge. And that was the Injog Shuffle. Like I mentioned before, this is one of the foundational false overhand shuffles, but it's also the one that I use the least because, again, like I mentioned before, I just find that the lift shuffle or the milk shuffle to be far more useful. But again, right, if you do manage to find some use for this move, or if you prefer this move over the other two, then that's completely fine, right? That's a choice that you made as a magician, and yeah, it's not really mine to tell you otherwise, right? So if you do find this move useful, or you prefer this move over the other two, then please use this move. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, because, I mean, yeah, again, this is just personal preference, right? Just because I prefer a move doesn't mean that you have to also prefer it. But personally, I just prefer the two other moves, right? But if you prefer this move, that's completely fine by you, okay? So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Yeah. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just leave them down in the comments below. And yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, and see you guys in the next video. All right, see you.